Hi there, my name is Sarah Histand. I am an Alaskan, I'm a personal trainer, mental health counselor, and the creator of Ski Babes and Summer Strong. And I'm going to tell you a little more about those at the end, but what I want to focus today on is an eight-step process for checking out what your personal risk is for an ACL injury. So ACL is one of the primary stabilizer ligaments in our knees, and women in particular are pretty susceptible to an ACL tear. I personally know this from my own experience. I tore both of my ACLs when I was in high school, had surgery to repair both of them, and luckily I've been able to repair them, build back my strength, and have an adult life full of, outdoor recreation and rugby and biking and hiking and skiing and all sorts of stuff. So it's totally repairable, but it takes a lot of time and effort, and it's way better if we can prevent them. So that's why I want to take you through this process, see how at risk you are for an ACL injury, and I'll give you some ideas about what to do if you are high risk. So here we go. First one, you got to take off your socks and shoes. I'm going to keep mine on, but you take yours off and look at your feet. We want to know if your arch is a flat arch, if it's normal, kind of in the middle, or if it's really high. And if it's either of those extremes, if it's either a flat foot or a really high arch, you have extra susceptibility for ACL tears, because both of those extremes tell us that your feet aren't quite as good as at absorbing body weight when we land as like a foot that has a normal arch. So there's number one. Number two is joint flexibility. So take your wrist, and try to fold your hand down to your forearm. And if you can get your thumb all the way to your forearm, that's an indicator that your joints are extra flexible, and that is another risk factor. So if you have super flexible joints, then we depend on your ligaments and your muscles to create stability in your joints, and that is tough. So if you have extra flexible joints, you're also extra susceptible, but there's more. Number three. So number three is quad dominance. And to do this one, we got to get up and move around a little bit. So stand on up and bounce around with me. We're going to start just right here, moving it right into this bounce. And if it's safe and feels good for you to actually jump, we'll go into that. So we'll just do some little jumps right here, nice and light. And do this as long as it takes to start to feel some muscles heating up and maybe get a little bit of muscle burn there. And once you do, I want to check in, do a little body scan and check in with which muscles are burning. And if it's just your quads, then you're probably quad dominant. If you also have some sensation going in your glutes and your booty and your hamstrings, then you're probably doing a better job of utilizing your posterior chain as well as your quads. But many of us are quad dominant, and it's just those quads that are going to heat up. So that's a really good thing to be aware of, because when we're aware, we can then start to intentionally train the muscles in the posterior chain to do their jobs. And that's a big part of what I do in Summer Strong and Ski Babes, is help people learn, work through different techniques to get that booty, get those hamstrings to do their part of the work. Okay, next one, we're going to do landing stability. So for this one, we need a step. Okay, so here I've got a basic step or a platform. We're going to come up onto it and really watch what happens when we land from up on an elevated step. Of course, if it's not safe for you to jump off and land, if that puts too much pressure on your joints, this is going to be a tough one for you to do. Probably just skip it. But for those of us that can jump off, what we're going to do is watch really closely, maybe in a mirror, or maybe take a little video on your phone. See what happens when you come off and land, and where your knees tend to go. So if your knees stay in the same alignment with your toes, ideally they're lined up with your second or third toes, then you're good. If your knees did any sort of little saggy thing, that is a big red flag for ACL risk. So we got to really get good at keeping those knees in alignment. And a lot of times that means activating some glutes, strengthening out up the inner and outer thighs a bit. Totally work withable, but we got to be aware first. So check that one out, get some like slow-mo video of yourself and see what happens. And that'll really help us know how like aligned your knees are when we do that sort of thing. Okay, next one is also on the step. We're gonna flip it around and go from the side. So this is a test of glute strength. Come on up on your step with one foot. Find your hip points, that's like the bony little points at the front of your hips, and put your hands on those. And with one foot on the step and the other foot off, check out how even your hips are. So are your hips able to stay right here, nice and even, or do they do a little saggy thing, which ends up with one of them lower than the other? If you have any sort of sag happening, that is an indicator that you've got a bit of weakness in the glute that's up on the step. So of course, we gotta do both sides so we get a sense of how strong both of the glutes are, but that's what we're looking for with glute strength. Okay, next one is core strength. Clear your space and come down onto the floor. We want to be laying on your back for this one. Okay, so on your back, knees above your hips and 90-degree angle at the knees. What we're going to do is pull the knees in toward the chest, seeing if you can get the knees all the way in there. All the way up and in is great. Using that core strength, if you can get those knees all the way up into the chest, you passed. And if you didn't, that is an indicator that you might have some tightness in your back, in your hamstrings, or some weakness in your core. Now, if the reason was that you couldn't make it in was that you had some like extra body mass that got in the way, we can also test core strength by doing a V-sit test right here. Roll the shoulders back, lift the chest, stabilize the core. You can start with the hands behind you and the heels down. From here, we could up level and lift the heels up off the ground. If you've got that, try removing the hands, holding this position, and then maybe extend the legs, and then maybe extend the arms. And each of these progressions gives us an opportunity to up level. Now, if your back starts to slump down here, low back, at any of those levels, that's an indicator that the core wasn't able to sustain the weight. So another way to test how strong your core is, this one, super critical to have strong core when we're doing pretty much anything in life, whether it's carrying around Costco groceries or kids or playing outside. So another one that's really, really easy to train if we're intentional about it. But if you have core weakness, let's get on top of that because that's probably going to cause some problems down the road. Okay. Next one, leg dominance. So we want to know whether we've got like one leg that's really strong and the other one's weak, or if the two are pretty balanced. So the way to test this is to make like an X on your floor, or like if you played Foursquare in junior high like I did, make like a horizontal line and a vertical line on the floor. And then we're gonna move on to one leg and do one-legged hops between those two squares for 30 seconds, counting how many you do in 30 seconds. So you're hopping forward and back and left and right, and like all sorts of different combinations of those 4 directions for 30 seconds on one foot. Take a break, do the other side, count how many you did there, compare those two numbers. And ideally, they're pretty close, maybe within 10%. That's pretty good. If they're more than 10% off, then you've got an imbalance between the two sides, something that we really want to address because imbalance between the two legs is one of those risk factors for ACL injury. Okay, last one. So I've got a ski pole. You could use a broomstick or a kayak paddle, whatever you have around. What we're gonna do for this one is try to do a squat with the hands up above the head, right, hands right above the shoulders really, and see how deep we can get with heels on the ground, hands up above, and low ribs tucked in. So no flaring out of the chest to make this happen. Tuck those low ribs in and then drop down into a nice low squat, getting the butt maybe down below the knees, and then back up. So again, probably a good one to maybe take a video of yourself on, or do this really slowly in the mirror. I'll show you from the side. Hands up above the shoulders. We're going to squat down as low as we can, heels on the ground, butt drops maybe below the shoulders, below the knees, and the hands hopefully stay back pretty well. If the hands come forward, that's one of the things that we're taking issue with mobility wise. Mine might be able to stay even a little bit further back if I had even better mobility there. Maybe you can do better than I did. And if the heels come up off the ground, that's another one of the things that means that our system's a little tight. We need a little more mobility in our squat form. Okay, so those are the 8 different tests to check out your personal risk level for ACL injury. If you found some problem areas or some things that you're worried about in that test, please don't freak out. It's better to know that we have some areas to work with than to just blindly think we're good to go and go just do things kind of recklessly. Instead, let's get aware so we can train and work with our problem areas and heal them, make them better, make them stronger. It's totally possible to improve in all of these areas when we're working intentionally with it. So just by having this knowledge that I gave you today, you might have a better idea of a way to work with this. If you want some specific structure and some support and an awesome community to do this with, I'd super encourage you to think about joining up with us for Summer Strong or for Ski Babes or for both. It's not limited to people who are skiers or super athletes. We're all sorts of levels of people looking to be functionally strong, prevent injuries, and just have more fun and functional strength in our lives so we have less pain and suffering, even though that's somewhat inevitable too. But we're going to work on the mental strength as well as the physical strength so that when we run up to those times of pain and suffering, we can handle that stuff too. Okay, I'm super passionate about all of this, as you can probably see, and I'd love to have you. You can get on my email list if you want information about when that stuff comes out, and send me any questions if you have them, and get out there and take good care of yourself, get strong, get healthy, prevent your injuries, and please take really good care of yourself and have an awesome life. Okay, thanks for your time and attention, and until next time.